Hi, hello, good morning. I recently obtained a new item, a new by my standards, but not new in the makeup world. The item in question is the Tom Ford Cream Color Quad in the shade Rose Topaz. This is a palette that is not new by any means. It's already been on the market for at least 2 years, and I've remained quite curious about this formula from Tom Ford, and specifically for this color story, because it just struck me as such a beautiful, like neutral, slightly cool leaning color story. So I've been curious about it for a really long time. Basically, I was going back and forth on whether I want to pick it up and how, because the original price of these quads is like something in the ballpark of 90 euros, and it's a large pill to swallow. When I saw this brand new on Vinted, I didn't even think twice. I thought, okay, you know, now is my moment to score. So I picked up this quad. I haven't tried it yet. I've only swatched the eyeshadows, and I thought maybe it would be fun to do a get ready with me where I, you know, demo the quad. And I'm going to start doing my makeup because, as usual, this is being filmed right before work, and at some point I need to get there as well. I'm going to apply a little bit of my eyeshadow primer here. This is the Inglot Eyeshadow Keeper. Maybe just to clarify for those of you who are not super well familiar with Tom Ford formulas, Tom Ford quad formulas have quite a variety of different finishes and textures in there. And my personal, so far, favorite formula from him has been the wet and dry formula, because it is a baked gelée formula. He also has, you know, good old pressed powders, and I want to say that he's had, you know, somewhat like chunkier, sparklier eyeshadows in the past. I don't have any of those. I'm not actually sure whether they are baked gelée or not. For foundation today, I'm going to take the good old NARS Light Reflecting Foundation in the shade Deauville. And then 2 years ago, he released this cream color formula, which sounded very interesting and has mostly gotten extremely positive reviews from other people. I know Martina really loves this formula, and I think she also really loves this specific quad Rose Topaz. However, I, as usual, took my sweet time to try something new because, like I said, I just didn't want to spend 90 euros. Excuse me. I just didn't want to spend 90 euros on something so expensive if it turns out that I'm not super crazy about the formula, because I had a bit of a rocky start with the Tom Ford eyeshadow, you know, line, because the first quad that I bought from him was something with a mink in it. I bought it from one of the luxury stores here in the Netherlands. It's called the Bijenkorf, and I had given such good thought to which like color story I wanted. I don't know that I necessarily knew much about the different types of formula he has. I just went for like a color story, and I wanted something like soft that has mattes and like shimmery eyeshadows. So I purchased this, I want to say it's golden mink quad, and then it arrived, and I was so disappointed because one of the mattes in that palette was barely showing up, and the other one had a freaking hard pan. I couldn't get anything out of it, no matter how hard I tried to, you know, dig my finger in there. So I was super disappointed. This is the only item in my life ever that I have actually returned to store. I'm going to take the Sublimage Concealer from Chanel. Returning makeup is not standard operating procedure in Europe. You cannot just return makeup, and if you do return makeup, you can, oops, excuse me, only return it if you haven't really opened it and used it. I had opened the quad, I had swatched it, I even tried a look with it, but I figured it's worth a try because I had spent so much money on it, and it legitimately, like, one of the eyeshadows was just unusable to me. So then I messaged the customer service of Bijenkorf, not really expecting all that much, to only be pleasantly surprised that they did not mind one bit for me to return the palette. So it is possible to return items here if they are, you know, not performing as they should, especially if they're luxury items. But after that, for I want to say at least a year, I wouldn't touch Tom Ford quads with a 10-foot pole. And then I want to say I became a bit more aware of the different types of like formulas and finishes that he has, and I found out that he has the wet and dry formula, and I figured that might be a much safer choice for me. So then for a really long time I looked online at the different color stories, and I couldn't really pick one. And one of my favorites had always been Body Heat. And then I want to say sometime later, like quite some time later, I was in one of those like outlet stores which sells discounted luxury makeup, and they were selling an older limited limited edition collection from Tom Ford, the one that has the white packaging. I want to say maybe the collection was called Soleil Neige, and then the quad that I purchased is called something Alune. I'm going to partly set the foundation with a little bit of my Prada Reset setting powder, so I'm going to take this powder on my forehead particularly because that's where I tend to get quite oily. And I'm going to use it here on the inner, portion of my face where my pores are the largest. And then for the outer perimeter of my face, I'm actually going to dig into Dim Light from Hourglass, the ambient lighting powder, right here because I don't really need mattifying on the perimeter of my face. So right there, I would like to keep my complexion a little bit more, glowy. It's a bit of an overkill, but I like the combination of the two powders. The Hourglass powder is a finishing powder, it's not a setting powder. I'm quickly going to do my brows off camera because that's a really boring step, and then I'll be back to do bronzer, blush and highlighter. This is just my 24 brow setter from the Benefit. For my face makeup, I'm going to stick with like somewhat cooler tones because Rose Topaz strikes me as a pretty neutral palette, so I want to do something that's a little bit more like the neutral, maybe cooler side. So I'm going to take Diffused Bronze Light from Hourglass. This is actually a bronzer I discussed in my previous video, so I figured it might be fun for you to see back to back in videos how the bronzer from the Evil Eye palette looks compared to Diffused Bronze Light. Anyway, so I was finally familiarized, introduced to the wet and dry formula, and I sort of understood why people are, losing their shit over Tom Ford eyeshadows, because the baked gelée formula from Tom Ford truly is really, really good. Afterwards, I purchased another quad in that formula, the shade Body Heat, which is I think one of the most re-promoted color stories in his collection, and I even have it in like a limited edition outer packaging. It's like in a red, outside packaging box. Really, really stunning. And I actually use Body Heat a lot. I use Soleil Alune quite a bit as well, but I use Body Heat very regularly. I'm gonna be really extra today, and I'm going to open this whole palette just for a blush. And the blush that I am aiming for today is Nymphet from Pat McGrath Labs, which I have in my Starstruck Splendor palette, the holiday palette from last year. I really, really love this blush, and I do actually dig into this palette quite often to use Nymphet specifically. I also like the other blush, but Nymphet in particular is just one of my favorite colors. Sticking with somewhat cooler tones, I'm going to take this Gucci highlighter in the shade Golden Pink. And I was particularly intrigued by this formula because I've recently fallen in love, discovered and fallen in love with this sort of like a very creamy, it's still technically a powder, but it's so creamy that it feels more like a cream than it really does like a powder formula for eyeshadows. And prominent examples in that category would be my beloved Lancome Queens, as well as the actually the palettes from Lisa Eldridge. The mattes in her palettes have a very similar like cream to powder feel. I know Natasha Denona has a cream to powder formula. I've never tried that formula, but anyway, I've sort of like fallen in love with that whole concept of the cream to powder eyeshadows. I'm going to quickly set all the powders on my face with a little bit of Fix Plus. And before we proceed with an eye look, I'm just going to show you the quad up close and personal and swatch it for you. So this is Rose Topaz, and I'm going to just give you some quick swatches. As you can see, the eyeshadows are very soft. They're not going to be, a very impactful, flaky texture. They're just going to be very creamy, very smooth on the lids. And that is also how they apply. They are so incredibly smooth. I was so impressed when I first swatched them. The darkest shadow is also very pigmented. So we've got the lighter matte, the champagne next to it, then the more sparkly taupe neutral shade, and the dark brown. And they are probably not even coming across that well on my skin because some of them are quite light in tone, but I can assure you they look absolutely stunning and so incredibly smooth. And that's the thing about these like cream to powder formulas. They are very smooth, and what makes them so great is not just how they apply, but how they wear throughout the day. Throughout the day, I cannot explain to you how a formula like this really like melts with your skin and just looks so incredibly natural and like lit from within. They're so stunning. And from what I can tell by just watching them, they are indeed very similar to my super beloved, you know, cream to powder formula from Lancome. So if I compare these two to each other, I feel like they're rather similar, with the one from Tom Ford maybe being just a tad more sophisticated even. Alright, first I'm going to grab a fluffy blender brush and I'm going to go into this like beige matte shade right here, and I'm going to apply that all over my lid. You can see there is a little bit of like powder kick up here, just like with my Lancome quints, but I expect that these are going to essentially apply as smooth creams. Yes, this is so gorgeous. It's very close to my own skin tone, so it's not going to really show up all that much, but it's going to be an absolutely, you know, beautiful like beige transition shade. And again, it has that absolutely stunning quality where it like blurs the skin so nicely. This is exactly what my Lancome Queen formula does as well. And you can see there's really no specific undertone here. I think this is quite neutral in tone. On my skin it is not translating warm, it is not pulling cool gray either, it is just a beautiful beige. Next I'm going to take my pencil brush and I'm going to go into this beautiful dark neutral brown, also a very neutral shade from what I could see on the swatch, and one that packs quite the punch in terms of pigment. Look at that. And again I'm going to do what I usually do lately, which is sort of like apply it as a liner on my lids to give definition, and I'm going to blend it out onto the lids just to provide this like gradient smoky effect. So I'm just going to use the same brush now, and I'm going to intensify the color especially towards like the outer side of the eye, and I'm going to like blend it so that it fades into the beige. And I'm also going to use whatever is left on the brush to run that on my lower lashes, because I want to have a cohesive, you know, look, but I also don't want a super dark brown on my lower lashes. I think for this next step I'm just going to use my finger and I'm going to go into this shade here, the beautiful taupe neutral, which honestly looks wet. If you look at it in the pan like this, it almost looks like it's going to apply wet on the lids. And I can promise you it's not going to be a sparkly, super glittery eyeshadow, but it's just going to give the most beautiful wet sheen effect on the lids. And I'm just going to use that on my finger because I think that's probably going to apply the best. Theoretically, you could put a glitter base underneath as well, if you really wanted to intensify that wet sheen effect, but I think I just want to have it, you know, like a scattered shimmer on my lids today. If you want this eyeshadow to pop even more, you can apply the dark brown all over the lid, like fade it out, and then apply this shimmery shade over top of that, because you're going to give more body to that shade and it's just going to intensify that like wet lid effect. I don't know whether that effect is coming across on camera now. I can see it here in the mirror and it's like subtle, but it's so elegant. Now for my inner corners, because my inner corners tend to fade quite quickly because I touch my eyes a lot, I'm going to apply a little bit of this Kiko eyeshadow stick. In that way at least my inner corner gets a chance to hang around for a bit longer. And then of course I'm going to take the little champagne shade right here as my inner corner highlight. Oh, that's a beautiful shade. Really pretty. Also going to look very pretty, I think, if you layer these two together. I might try that next. This also has a very interesting undertone. It's not like a warm champagne gold. It's really quite, again, beige in tone. I wanted to show you a little bit under artificial lighting how this look performs, because there is a significant amount of beautiful wet shimmer on my lids. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love how this look turned out. Obviously, it called for a little Decade moment, so I'm wearing, of course, my beloved Velvet Decade from Lisa Eldridge, because the eyes are relatively subtle. There's like a smokiness to them, but they're relatively subtle, so Decade can really shine, but like it's so well balanced. The combination of the tones is so pretty. I absolutely love this look. I'm pretty happy with my purchase. Not pretty happy, I'm really happy with my purchase, because this quad is basically justifying my expectations of being this beautiful, sophisticated, elegant, you know, cream to powder formula that just looks so elegant on the lids. And also, what a beautiful freaking color story. What a stunning combination of colors. How beautifully like neutral, like it's neutral, you know. So many times you're going to buy some of these quads or like these smaller palettes with like neutral shades, and they're 95% of the time going to lean a little bit more on the warmer side, or they're going to lean cooler, but they're never going to be perfectly neutral. Whereas for me, this basically leans perfectly neutral. One thing that I can promise you though, the Lancome Queens do not have this gorgeous, you know, wet looking formula. They have beautiful smooth metallics in them, but this type of like wet looking formula, you know, you just like casually came out of the sea looking like a mermaid, they do not have that kind of texture. This is beautiful. So I'm very happy with my purchase, and especially for the price that I bought it for, an absolute steal. Let me know what you thought about this look. Do you have Rose Topaz? What do you think about it? He has released other quads in this formula, so I'm going to look back to see if there's anything in there that sparks my interest, but you can rest assured that if he releases more of these in the future, I'm going to be waiting with my eyes wide open. I'm going to wrap this video up as usual. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!